This is Fountain
Every
Street
week I find
Church.
it hard to find the best ones, but somehow, like I said, you'll hear what I'm trying to say even when the words
Here,
aren't right.
we strive to free the mind, grow the soul, and change the world. Here, there is freedom to doubt and freedom to believe. Here, you can find a house of prayer for all people.
The swallow up Jonah.
Welcome to Fountain Street Church. Join us on the journey.
Well, aren't you guys splendid? Thank you. Wow. You don't know that Thomas Tallis is one of those composers who everything he wrote seems to be magnificent. That's probably because it is. And thank you. What a great gift. Like St. Nicholas dropping the money unbeknownst into the windows of the poor. What a beautiful piece. I'm glad for that because even though it's nearly 50 today, we know that this is just a taunting reminder. I was telling someone that nature's just saying, see what you're not going to get for 4 more months. See how warm it could be if you weren't here, you know. Because, you know, by the end of the week, it's going to be below freezing, and those of us with older fingers and toes will lose. We'll see. Well, we're going to lose touch with each other, my fingers and I. There were times last winter when I don't think my toes and I were on speaking terms for days. It's also the season of merriment and hurry, of having to do things. My own calendar, I could be out every night this week, and I don't think I'm that merry for anyone. So I will summon up what I can, and by next Sunday I'll be spent. And it's also easy at a time like this to lose one's center in the hurly and the burly and the frivolity, the lighting of trees, the stringing of garlands, and the buying of stuff, and the partying with friends. And I'd like to think that this is now the most important time to be here, where we pull you back down to earthen reality, to remember that faith is not something we conjure with lights or even with trees, but we bring it in the door with us. It was Alice Walker who, I remind you, put into Shug Avery's mouth the insight that the only God she ever found in church was the one people brought in with them. And so I remember that you, all of you, have the divine spark in you that lasts all year long, and whether or not I see it in Advent, it is there at every moment. And what we seek to do here is to count all the little lights of hope that we bring in the room with us. And I certainly need it because no sermon is made by a preacher but is created by the hearts and souls, the sorrows and joys of everyone sitting together here. And so I pray that these words light you up and that your lights enliven me, and that we have a moment that we can treasure. Therefore may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be found true in thy sight, thou who art my rock and my redeemer. My title this morning, as you may have discerned, was winked at by Barbara Kingsolver, who herself is citing someone else. Many of you English teachers and students of literature will remember this is a poem by Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never ever stops, as I recollect it. I learned that poem in 1987 in late June when I was attending the General Assembly of Unitarians and Universalists. And the preacher at the most solemn service used that poem as the basis for her sermon. Her sermon was titled, Without Feathers. And the preacher was none other than Judith Walker Riggs, who was your interim minister, and that was the first time I heard her. And this has been a year without feathers for her. For those of you who do not know, her husband of many years died this past summer. A sad, if not unexpected, change because he had been unwell for some time. But it doesn't matter how long one prepares, one cannot be prepared for a loss of such size and magnitude. I think of her as perhaps dealing with featherless hope. If we think that hope is a thing with feathers, what is a featherless hope? It must be pretty feeble at best. And that's where I want to end up today, with the notion of featherless hope. The smallest hope there is. But I want to start at the opposite end to show you how I'm going there. This past Wednesday, I was invited by my friend Fred Stella, who tapes a radio show here in town called Common Threads, to join him and a fellow named Jeremy Bauma, who was an evangelical preacher, all of 31 years old, to talk about Rob Bell's controversial book. Mind you, the controversy has died down in some quarters, but it was worth the conversation. And we sat there in the little studio recording it, 2 episodes. Some of you came up to me this morning and said they heard me, and no, I did not hurry over here from the studio. But I'll be back again virtually next Sunday on that program. That's WGVU 88.5 FM on your dial. But I want to talk about the young evangelical fellow who was enjoying the confidence of youth and the confidence of faith. He was really confident, way assured, a very appealing young man with the kind of hairstyle that looks like you don't have one, you know what I mean? Bed head, is that what they call it? And he was blue eyes, and he was dressed in that kind of way low-key, semi-hipster, slacker look that's very popular, which I can't pull off at all, and he did. I don't have enough hair to do the hair. I don't have enough confidence to do the slacker look. And honestly, I was jealous, you know? You know, as a guy who, when he went to high school, was in the band. Remember how cool it was to be in the band, as in not? I've been going downhill ever since. I never had that youthful moment of glory, and here he was with his good looks and his beautiful voice and his confidence. He was so assured and confident. I was jealous of his confidence, his spiritual assurance, his sense that somehow this story he owned was just completely compelling and utterly believable. And I've never felt that in my entire life, not even a little bit, because you see, I grew up in a religious liberal home, which meant that when I was asking questions as a child, my good liberal parents decided to let me decide if there was a God or not. Now, when you're 7 or 8 years old, you want to know. You're not looking for options. You know, if you come to your mom and dad and you say, does Santa Claus exist? You don't want to kind of, you don't want equivocation, guys. You want to know for sure. And so I grew up in a household that was honest and free and tough. It was tough to go to church when you didn't know what you were doing. Kids want certainty. So yeah, I was taught very early to question my own thoughts. Also to be understanding of others. So I visited other churches and other houses of worship. Were they cool or what? They often had smells. I love the smelly parts. And they had bells and pictures and rustling robes, and it was very impressive. My church had a pulpit. That's about it. It was not a compelling childhood. I've never had that sense of spiritual confidence my evangelical friend did. I've been doubting everything as long as I can remember. And that bothered me as I'm taping this show because I wanted to be more assured, more confident, more hopeful. And I want to tell you now that being hopeless is sometimes exactly the right place to be spiritually. I'm going to say that by telling you two little stories, one of which is current or contemporary, one of which is very ancient. The current one is about Maya Angelou, the great writer. And I'm telling her story because, like other stories of women I have told this year, hers is a tragic story on the face of it. In her book, the first of many volumes of literary memoirs, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, she describes a vicious and awful youth that at the age of 8 includes an act of being raped by a man friend of one of her relatives. And I know that's an awful thing to mention in church, and yet our silence about the losses, the violences done to people around the planet does not do us any good. But her story, if you know it, is one of triumph. Not of diminishing that pain, but of trying to build it into a world in which she can begin to believe in it again. I was looking for quotes about hope to kind of get me going. And one of the things she pointed out was that she said, I believe that no matter how bad each day is, that tomorrow has the possibility of being better.